Hi everybody, warm welcome back to True to Form. Sam Turner back with you with another edition. On this week's show then, 3 selections for the Grand National, a week on Saturday. These horses available at 14s, 25s and 33 to 1 at the moment. And I want to put these out before the prices start drying up a little bit. A bit like the ground at Liverpool by all accounts. The forecast looks pretty dry for the next few days. I think the course executive and the groundsman are going to be pretty busy going into National Week. Then we'll go to Ireland for some eye catchers. One hurdler that caught the eye at Navan on Saturday and 3 flat horses from that Nace card, very informative card on Sunday that really took the eye and look as though they should be worth following going forward. I'll then go back to Doncaster for the Big Turf Handicap, the first one of the season, and a 25 to 1 chance of fancy in that. And we'll wind up with any other business, 1 or 2 selections perhaps for the weekend cards on Saturday. Right, strap yourselves in then, let's get on with the National. So with 5 of the last 6 renewals of the Grand National going the way of the Irish, it almost seems folly to really try and push sand uphill and oppose them, to be honest. And all 3 of my selections here are all Irish-based runners, and they look to have really leading chances as well, especially if the ground dries out, perhaps, for one of them, the biggest price of the trio. I've already gone on record as saying 3-Card Bragg was my long-term view for the race, and I am a little bit concerned that the ground's going to go against him. He should get into the race, and I think he's got a leading chance if he does, but I'm just a little bit worried that he is pretty soft ground orientated, and whether conditions are going to play to his strengths or not is open to question. So let's go with this trio here, and Percival Le Gaulois is the first of those. Obviously a very good winner at the DRF, over hurdles as well, clocking a closing sectional for the last 4 furlongs on a par with Final Demand, who was tremendously impressive, as we know, in Grade 1 company. So that was a brilliant effort, really, over hurdles from Percival Le Gaulois, who was so often the bridesmaid in some very, very competitive handicap chases. But this year, he's just dropped right on a couple of performances. And certainly the penultimate run in the Paddy Power chase over Christmas at Leopardstown was a really, really taking performance. Now, I know Midnight Our Fred has let the form down a little bit at Cheltenham, the runner-up that day, but Percival Le Gaulois came from a long way back, recording a race IQ jump index of 8.5, which was a pretty good job, really, because Mark Walsh was probably a bit further back than he would have liked during that race. But he stayed on very, very strongly to win in a handsome time. And I really like his claims here. I don't think he'll go too badly on decent ground either. Not that the Aintree executive will let it become too quick. He has got form on that good to yielding ground, as he showed at Leopardstown. That was his career best performance. And 6 of the last 9 winners of this race have all had 10 chase starts or less, and he's had 9. So he fits in quite nicely into that stats. He's also in the correct ratings band, I think. He's a nice age, and I think he'd be Mark Walsh's ride. And as we touched on in last week's podcast, Mark Walsh rode beautifully at the Cheltenham Festival. All of his 4 winners achieved brilliant race IQ jump index stats, and that just shows you what a great horseman he is. Nice. The third and final selection would be Senior Chief, who those of you who cast your eyes back to Cheltenham in October saw him bolt up and beat the Short Go stablemate, the Short Go, over good ground over the staying trip at Cheltenham. I thought it was a really good effort. He's a much better horse left-handed as well. He disappointed in the Irish National last year, but I think on good ground, left-handed, I think we'll see much more the real deal from Senior Chief. First time cheek pieces were on at Cheltenham. They weren't on last time when he had a little warm-up over hurdles. And in the interim, he was beaten 11 lengths in the Coral Trophy, staying on quite well. I think this marathon trip will suit him ideally. He looks a spring horse, a better ground horse. And I think with his stable going in great guns as well this spring, a couple of Cheltenham winners to boot, I think he's a big price at 33. So Percival Le Gaulois, Midnight Kakuna, and Senior Chief, 14 to 1, 25 to 1, 33 to 1. Those would be my 3 picks for the Grand National. Well, with those Irish horses carrying all before them, seemingly under both codes, either side of the Irish Sea, it seems folly to ignore the racing in Ireland, not least over hurdles at Navan on Saturday and at Nace on Sunday. So the Navan horse that I really liked was a horse that ran behind Eastern Legend, a 134 rated horse, and it's Foded Ren, who finished second. Now, I probably pronounced that absolutely abysmally and massacred the name, but do put the horse in your trackers though, because he was a runner-up that day and he travelled very sweetly on Saturday and was just beaten by a better class horse. He's also shown a fair bit of ability on the flat as well. I think he's had 3 starts on the flat and shaped quite well in staying maidens. I really like the way that he went through this race on decent ground. 8.4 on the Race IQ jump index, and he accrued 10 lengths on the lengths gain stats as well. So really good performance from Fodedrin. I really like his chances going forward in a minor handicap somewhere along the lines. I know the handicapper's not going to take this performance too lightly, given he's chased home a 134 rated horse, but Eastern Legend has been round the block a little bit. But I do think that Fodedrin could well win a nice staying handicap on the flat if he doesn't win over hurdles first. Right, 24 hours later at Naas then, the 7 furlong maiden won by Rowdy Yates. Well, this produced the fastest 2 furlong sectional on the card. So Rowdy Yates has clearly set his own agenda in front, quickened well from the turn and won in 26.6. Those are the final 2 furlong sectional that he managed to record. It was a really smart ride and he got the job done really well. So the first 4 in that race all raced prominently. And I thought the 2 eye catchers for me were a horse called Ribby, who was sent off at 200 to 1 for Michael Mulvaney, who'd earlier won on the card, the 5 furlong handicap. So his horses are going great guns at the moment. And this son of Ribchester really took the eye. He only beat 1 home on his Dundalk debut, but there was much more in this performance that punters could like going forward. I think he'll be a nice horse when he's handicapped. He did 26.89 for the last 2 furlongs, so not much behind the winner on this occasion. He was poorly positioned as well as the way that the race transpired. I don't think Connections were too bothered of finishing too close at 200 to 1, so I think he's definitely one for the notebook, the proverbial notebook, or even the trackers, whichever you may prefer. In the same race, just a place behind, Diego El Queso sent off 22 to 1, and the stable second string of Jer Lyons shaped with an enormous amount of credit as well. He went home in 26.68. He was hampered in the straight, otherwise he may well have recorded the fastest closing sectional of the race. He's a son of Blue Point, and the market sort of suggested that Sunday wasn't the order of the day. And I think with this run under his belt, Gary Carroll gave him a nice introduction. I think he certainly will be winning races, especially for a stable that have started the spring in brilliant form. Finally at Naas then, a winner, East Hampton, who managed to win the 7 furlong handicap off a mark in the late 80s. Third winner on the weekend as well, I think, for his trainer, David Marnane. He powered through the deep ground. I thought it was a really taking performance, the way that he travelled and moved. I thought, perhaps knowing his trainer, that something like the Britannia handicap, if it came up soft, might be the order of the day. But I think they're going to plough on with him anyway. And that is back in June anyway, so it's quite a long way away. Targets of that nature, but I just loved the way that he galloped through the line that day at Naas, and his stride data suggests that stepping up to a mile wouldn't be averse either for him. I think he's quite a classy individual on proper soft ground, and he's definitely one I'll be keeping on the right side of. So those are the Irish eye catchers then. Let's get back to Doncaster for the first big handicap of the year, the Lincoln. So Doncaster staged their first big handicap of the season, a first big handicap of the flat season on the turf, with a Lincoln taking place on Saturday. And one horse that I really like and think's a little bit overpriced is Alpha Crucis at 25 to 1 for Josh and Gary Moore. And this horse was 4th in the race last year under young Anna Gibson, and was drawn a little bit away from how the race played out, and certainly where the main protagonist came from, was stuck on the wing on the near side a little bit, and under his inexperienced rider, didn't quite get into it until quite late. Thought it was a really encouraging performance. He's only beaten 4 lengths, and it certainly set the stall out for the remainder of the season, which saw him go and win a couple of nice races at Goodwood with some give in the ground. I think it's probably quite crucial to him that there is some ease at Doncaster, and there is 1 or 2 showers forecast before Saturday, so that should play to his strengths. I just think 25 to 1 for him, a horse that's been there and done it, and there's only 3 or 4 lengths beaten in this race 12 months ago, is a little bit on the tall side, that 25s, and hopefully with some enhanced places nearer the race, we might get a nice price about Alpha Crucis at least making the frame at Doncaster. Second selection in the race is Midnight Gun, who's been gelded since we last saw him. His last 3 starts have been for New Connections, having started his career with Ed Walker, and it was an Ed Walker horse he chased home here over course and distance last October, and that was Harper's Ferry. Now Harper's Ferry got a really good ride under Tom Marcan that day. He got a little bit loose on the lead and boxed on very gamely, and he was 8 to 1 to win this race, but hasn't made the final shake-up. But I think that can play to Midnight Gun's strengths, who hasn't got to take on his old rival. And with that gelding operation, I wonder whether there's a little bit more to come from him. And James Doyle has already been booked early on for Wathnan Racing. So I think those two give us a couple of decent darts to throw at the board on Saturday. 25 to 1 Alpha Crucis looks a bit overpriced, and 10 to 1 Midnight Gun makes plenty of appeal. That's the Doncaster race wrapped up then. Let's get on with Saturday's cards. Saturday's support cards aren't great fare, if I'm honest. The jumping cards look pretty modest, with the exception perhaps of Tutti Quanti in the first race at Stratford, although I wouldn't want to back him at a silly price. Obviously, he was 6th in the Michael O'Sullivan Supreme Novices Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival behind Kopek de Board. Looked like he was going to be tailed off after 2 furlongs, and yet really ran pretty well to finish 6th, beating 25 lengths. I thought that was a good effort from him. He again jumped well, which is one of his main attributes. His race IQ jump index is always exceptionally good. Was good at Newbury as well when he was beaten. And he's going to make up into a lovely novice chaser next year. So hopefully he can win this before being perhaps put away for the summer and brought out with the Novice Chase campaign in mind in the autumn. Up at Doncaster then, other than the picks in the Lincoln, the 150, the Spring Mile, well, Desperate Dan might go well here if he's allowed to take his chance. He's well suited by a mile with some cut in the ground, and I reckon he's quite well handicapped starting his 4-year-old campaign. He got stuck in the mud a little bit over the 10 furlongs at Newbury, and I think this drop back in triple suits him. A little bit later on, the Doncaster Mile, well, this might go the way of Liberty Lane, who's a very potent force when he encounters some cut in the ground over a mile. Although he disappointed when he was favourite or well fancied for the Lincoln 12 months ago, he didn't get the best of draws that day and just didn't fire for whatever reason. But we saw that he can be pretty useful when he takes his chance on some cut in the ground, and it'd be disappointing if he can't go very close here for Sheikh Obeid Al Maktoum. Then on Sunday, at Ascot, I like the look here in the 320. It's the juvenile handicap hurdle of Maître en Science, who's dropped £10 in a couple of runs for Harry Derham this year. Hasn't quite clicked yet, this horse, and it could be that he's taken a while just to acclimatise to British racing, but he avoids the Scottish air, which doesn't seem to have suited him too well in his 2 starts to date. He's run at Musselburgh and Kelso and run a bit flat on both occasions, but hopefully round Ascot he can go well in that 320. Harry's got a couple of entries in that, Aviemore being another one. But I think Maître en Science starting to look a nicely handicapped horse on his French form and should go quite nicely on Sunday afternoon. That's it then. Thanks very much for tuning in for another week. I really appreciate your support. Good luck with whatever you're backing this weekend, and I look forward to speaking to you next week, where I'm going to do A to Z, a very, very swift A to Z of every runner in the Grand National. 40 horses covered, all inside about 10 minutes, rapid fire through them, all with a rating, and I look forward to bringing you that next week. Bye for now.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.